Welcome to Real Talk with Karia Christopher, the conversation. Our new season is filled with heart-to-heart dialogues, always unscripted and always unedited. We tackle issues from the bedroom to the boardroom. No topic is left unturned. We inspire and we ignite. We go where no one else dares, but always with dignity and flair. Join us for a new season of Real Talk as we learn, love, and laugh together. Hello BVI, hello Caribbean, hello world. This is your host Karia Christopher here on Real Talk, a brand new season where we love, we laugh, we learn together, and we promise informative, dynamic, inspiring conversation. And yes, we always are never afraid to go there, but with dignity and some flair. Today, and I always say my friend, but I consider him to be my friend. I know him way back. I'm a little older than him, but I respect this man so much, and I know he's under a lot of pressure. Honourable Doctor the Honourable Natalio Wheatley. Yes, man, it's a mouthful. Now, I'm going to get this messed up, so I'm not going to try. But let me tell you his portfolio: education, agriculture, youth affairs, sports, fisheries, and farming.
Yes.
Jeez, that's 6 things. Dr. Wheatley, Honourable Wheatley, it's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here,
Man,
Karia.
thank you so much for
honored
coming.
to be on the famous, historic, the highly talked about Real Talk.
Shane, tell him flattery will get him everywhere, but we're still asking some tough questions, right?
Yes.
Doc, Honourable, I'm going to probably use those words interchangeably. Please, no, it's no disrespect.
Right.
Thank you for coming. You are, I would say, outside of the Premier, certainly the busiest minister within this government.
Yes.
And a brand new minister.
Yes.
With a huge portfolio.
Yes.
How are you emotionally, mentally? That's important.
You know, it's important when you're in jobs such as this, and even in your position, Karia, at trade and of course all the other things that you are involved in. It's important to take a particular approach to anything to make sure that you stay even keel.
Yeah.
Because every day you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, and you just have to make sure when you begin the day, you start it the right way, you make sure you're centered, you make sure you say a prayer to God, and whatever might transpire during the day, you just try to make the most of it, and you have a way of dealing with difficulties, dealing with concerns, and you keep it moving. Keep a positive attitude at all times. And I think I do a pretty good job of keeping a positive attitude.
I think you do an excellent job. Just that answer alone, you already inspired me.
Right.
Now, we talked a little bit before we were getting mic'd, and we understand that once anyone decides to step into the field of politics, it's really not about you anymore. It's your family, it's your children.
Yes.
So you kind of bring everyone into the spotlight.
Right.
And I said to you now that I refuse to read the news now well over a year.
Yeah.
And because it kind of derailed me a little bit. I'll be the first to say it.
Right.
And I wanted to keep focus. How do you keep focus outside of your press? Because you are in the headlines every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Well, I understand that I'm in the public arena, and that, of course, persons will, report on things happening in the ministry or even me. So I understand that that's a part of being a part of the job. I do think that our news media can do a better job of keeping people informed, giving them accurate information. I think we've gotten caught up from a kind of sensational media culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's not really good for us here. And I would encourage the news organizations and reporters, make sure that you keep the public informed. Don't just seek to create sensational headlines just to get, clicks.
Yeah.
And I think as a community, we have to show a certain level of maturity. So I congratulate you for really distancing yourself from that type of culture. And of course, we have lots of different means of getting news. You have the evening news on the radio, you have statements, GIS, different types of things like that. But I really think that the news media should step up to the plate and recognize their responsibility to provide accurate information to the public.
Okay, so I like that answer, and in finding other news outlets for me worked. As I said, I needed to stay focused. And I'm not a minister, far from it. So I can't imagine how tough it is for persons in your position. But who much is given, much is expected.
Absolutely.
And you have, in my mind, the most important ministry, education.
Yes.
And I think everybody who knows me know that I have a particular affinity to girls and educating girls, and because I believe that women, well, girls obviously turn into women and we're nurtured and we're, clearly we look like the ox-mat and the guys now shame.
Yes.
And so some of the criticism that you have received, I'm certain you understand.
Yeah.
You had a tough position coming on the heels of 2 devastating hurricanes, having to have schools that were on shift system, and then lo and behold, a global pandemic.
Yes.
So makes having education now even more difficult in a safe way.
Right.
The cries that we are hearing now from parents are that it is time for education to take a priority. And some folks have labeled that section as a failure. Now, I don't have children in the system anymore.
Yeah.
But do you understand where parents will be upset that now going on, 4 years, I think, since the hurricanes to now, most of the children have not had a regular day of school. You understand why people would be upset?
Oh, I'm definitely upset. But let me congratulate you for what you have done, contributed to the system with Sham Academy.
Thank you.
Yeah, because of course it's not really just about the subject matter, the content. It's also about your character, your ability to be able to be in a social settings, your etiquette. All of these things prepare a child to reach their full potential.
Yeah.
And what I encourage persons to do is look at education as a partnership. Mm-hmm. It's not just about the Minister of Education. It's not just about the CEO. It's not just about the teachers. Mm-hmm. It's a united effort. All of us have to see education as top priority. Mm-hmm. That goes to what gifts you buy for your children. That goes to reading to them when they're born. Mm-hmm. All of us have to prioritize education. Our system is still producing wonderful students. I mean, your children. Your children are excellent. I mean, you have Hunter, and I was very pleased to see Dakota with her very high 3.9 plus GPA.
Yes, sir.
My children are doing well. There's so many children doing well in the system. Mm-hmm. When I became minister, I recognized that the system did have some weak areas, even though that we're still producing stellar students who can top, the classes in the United States and the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. But we have some weak areas. Areas like our provision of technical education. Mm-hmm. That's been an area of focus for me since coming in as minister. We also have a provision for students with special educational needs. Mm-hmm. We can do a lot better there, and that's been an area of focus. And there have been areas over years, Karia, that have been neglected, that have not been given sufficient attention. And of course, these things happen over the years, and then of course, sometimes they spill over in some difficult ways, especially at a time now where you have COVID-19 pandemic. And we also have, as you said, the 2 hurricanes that we had, along with many other difficulties that we have, the attack on financial services and other areas of pressure. But you said it the right way. Education, even in the midst of these difficulties, has to be an even higher priority than it is right now, and that's what I'm advocating for.
Do you think that you have the support that you need to be a success? Because I believe every minister, it's a tough job.
Yeah.
And this is not the space where I'm going to endorse not one minister. I'll endorse y'all later on if I think you deserve it. But
of course,
it's a tough job that you signed up for.
Yes.
Yours happened to be really tough because you're almost like a public-facing minister where you have these parents that are very anxious about their children.
As they should be.
They should be. And I remember being one of those type of parents. I know that my kids went to the private sector, but it's very much dependent on the education system in the BVI.
Right.
And I thought that, and I still think that the education system in the BVI is better than most in the Caribbean, really in the world. And I always say, teach your child to compete against the world.
Absolutely.
We are small, but we can do it.
Absolutely.
And it has been proven in Olympics, in academics, And we'll get to all of that good stuff later on because
Right.
there are some great wins that is happening right now for the BVI. But in preparing for you to come to this program, obviously I'll have to do a little bit of research.
Of course.
What I've seen is that the private system, the St. George's and the Seventh-day Adventists and the Cedars, they're able to have school full-time. They're able to give the children a sense of normalcy, which I think is the biggest issue for parents, having to take the kids up half day or drop them off at 1 o'clock or whatever the case is. And then the social aspects of the domino effect, where these children go in with their parents had to work.
Right.
So should we be concerned that there is a gap between the private system and the public system here? What is the public system doing that the private system doing that the public system somehow is not able to do, or are we misreading this? What is going on there?
I think to a certain extent we're misreading it.
Sure, tell me.
I'm a product of public school education. You are as
Absolutely,
well.
yes.
And I do think that we have excellent public school students, and you have excellent private school students as well. I think the private schools have a very important role to play because, of course, the public schools are only so big.
Correct.
And, of course, the private schools are able to do certain things that public schools just aren't able to do. And if you think about the difference between private and public, that's generally what you have, because most persons who go to private school, they have perhaps maybe the resources to be able to go into, depending on the school really,
Understand.
the resources to be able to go to the school, while the public system generally would take persons who wouldn't have as many resources. And of course you have persons in the public schools who do have resources, but they just believe in
the public
supporting
system, yes.
public education. And the choice is really for a parent. And
Yeah.
of course we know there are many persons who come from other countries. They may not have really the financial wherewithal, but they've certainly made the sacrifice for the children's education in a St. George's or a Seventh-day Adventist, etc. And I really want to show a lot of honor and respect to those persons who have invested so much in their children's education. But let's take what you mentioned about having a full day of school. I know that St. George's and Seventh-day Adventists, they had online. In fact, recently, Seventh-day Adventists had some COVID.
They had to move back. So
COVID cases, and they were able to do completely online education. And I think it's actually an advantage to be able to have the technology, the resources to be able to go fully online whenever you need to. Of course, we know it creates certain challenges, of course, and we ask for employers to be particularly mindful of the fact that we're going through a coronavirus pandemic, worst pandemic in 100 years, and we need everybody to be on the same page. We part of Team BVI right now. So while in the past you might have been thinking just profit, 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 we have to think, well, what about my employees? What about their well-being? What about their children? Let's make sure that we make some allowances for parents who are in those particular positions, you know, whether they have to do different hours, whether you let them work from home while they are able to monitor their children. And I think really good employers in the BVI have made those type of allowances for parents who have children working. You have other schools, like let's take for instance Cedar School. They have a big campus. They have the resources where they were able to create some extensions to their classrooms, and they were able to accommodate all their students. And I celebrate them for that. I was able to see some of the improvements they made to a campus to have full day learning, and that made a big difference. And in terms of our public schools now, we had public schools that were doing full day, like public schools like Jasper Van Dyke Primary, for instance.
They're smaller, yes.
Yeah, because of the size. So it's really not a question of public or private. It really had to do with the size of the school and the space that they had available. For instance, we have most of the primary schools, I think all the primary schools now, full day of learning. You don't hear much about it because, of course, we attracted to negativity.
Yes.
And the high school, we recognize that we want the children in the high school to have a full day of school as well. That's why when we first came into office, we fixed what we now know as the Ella Dorothy Turnbull building. That allowed us to eliminate the shift system. And of course, because of COVID and the protocols that we have now, we don't have the space that we had before to be able to accommodate the protocols. So we have the shift system now. But the good news is that we're going to be building new buildings at the Lower Estate campus so that we can go back to a full day of schooling.
Now, you said something that was very prevalent to me. You said there's some good wins that are happening, but of course we don't hear about them.
Right.
And so, do you think it's time you as the minister, because at the end of the day, you want to get your job back. Right. And you can only get your job back when persons believe in what they see. And if we're not seeing something, if the news happens to be sending a negativity, and that's clickbait, and I understand how it works, then do you accept that you have some responsibility to surround yourself with persons who can promote the spaces that I work in so that people can believe in the system? Because you said something very accurate. Both of us are product of the public system.
Right.
And I believe in a public system.
Right.
My both children happen to go to the private school. And I can say this. The only difference that I have seen, me personally, and I'm going to be battled for this, the education was no different. Any child from Elmore Start versus a child from a St. George's, I think that the education is exactly the same.
Right.
The same type of teachers, the same thing. The difference was the social aspect. Because it was smaller, the rules were much stricter.
Right.
When they say no skirts, be above your knees, when they say no big earrings, when they say no smoking, no drinking, those are the things that a bigger school would be more difficult to curb. So I give you the credit for that because I am a proponent of the public system.
Right.
But what my concern would continue to be until I see different is to normalize this school. And I worry more about the fact that these young people are at home or on the streets. Something happens half of the day. 4 hours they're unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And so you will see increase in teenage pregnancy. You will see increase in unfavorable social behavior, drinking, smoking, these things, because there's not a lot of things that is put together for these students outside of the normal school hours that you don't have any control over.
Right.
So you accept that, do you?
Well, I do accept that we have to do a lot more work with our young people.
Yeah.
We have to provide more gainful activities for them, and we have to provide a lot more direction and a lot more guidance for them, especially speaking about some of the things you're speaking about, because they have more time to get involved in these things.
Correct.
But even when I was in school, I know you would get persons getting in trouble. They sneak off from school, or even in the period between when school lets out and when they have to be back in home, things can happen. I think it's important for us to put more institutions in place to ensure, just like Charm Academy, to ensure that our young people are making the best choices. I mean, things like Charm Academy, male, female, they're excellent. So, and it's not just the job of the education system. It's all of us. I love to see what Lions Club is doing. I love to see what Rotary Club is doing. You know, I love it. I mean, it takes really a community to make a successful school. But I think what you're saying is correct. Your earlier point about promoting some of the wins that we're having, promoting positivity in the system. And I believe that the negative seems to win sometimes. I think we have to get stronger about sending the positive message about what's taking place in the education system. You have wonderful, I mean, I went to Virginia School of Technical Studies on Friday. We had a happy hour for the teachers.
The teachers, my sister was there,
Yeah, and we had some students there who cooked all the hors d'oeuvres. We had some students there who gave teachers massages. We had students there who were preparing light cocktails. And I'm always so impressed when I go to the Virgin Islands School of Technical Studies. These students' stories deserve to be told. So, of course, you know, we have to GIS, they're working their butts off.
I know. I support them 100%.
We have to try to see how we can get them more resources to be able to do more. And, of course, you asked me before about support in the education system. It's important that we put all the resources necessary to help the system to function, because the persons in the system, a lot of them are doing a great job. I mean, they're doing a wonderful job. Recently, we had a deputy CEO position filled by Mrs. Orlandit Crabb.
Yes, congratulations to her.
Very talented individual. She was a principal at Joy Samuel for many years. Did a wonderful job there, and she's going to help the ministry so much. But we still have open positions that we need filled. I was able to add a permanent secretary to my ministry.
I heard so. Congratulations to you.
Yes, that made a big difference. And we have some more positions that we have to fill, and we have to keep punching.
Well, let me ask you this question, Minister, because you have the biggest portfolio,
Yes,
a massive portfolio.
yes,
Some areas that are gray areas.
right,
Recently, I heard some cries about the farming industry. We have
right.
long said that agriculture should be a pillar.
Yes,
We've had a failed greenhouse.
right,
We've had every reason in the world to start to grow our own food.
right,
Yet, there seems to be a disconnect. Persons are not going into the farming industry locally. We have lots of persons who import
right,
goods
right.
or produce.
Yeah.
Lots of nothing against the Dominicans, nothing
Right.
against the Dominicans and the avocados and the nice plantains, but we see more of that versus the local indigenous farmers.
Right.
And I know there seems to be some gray area happening now. What are your plans in that space? How can we merge the two if we can? Because of course, to get the farming, the produce here, you still have to approve, well, not you, but agriculture, so which is still you, have to approve it, but I know there's been some disconnect happening there. What are your plans there?
Well, you know what? I'm excited about agriculture. I'm very excited about agriculture and the potential that we have in agriculture. As you said, it can be a pillar. It can be something that can produce jobs. It can provide healthier food for us. It can provide business opportunities, tax revenue for the government, and it's an obvious area to invest in. And one of the things I'm excited about agriculture is this new what we call a food security and sustainability bill. I've been working on it since I've got into the position. It's over 100 pages long, this new bill. Our agricultural legislation has not been updated in many years.
Yeah.
We have agricultural legislation as old as over 100 years. You know,
I believe that. I
very
believe that.
old legislation. So the legislation needed to be consolidated and it needed to be modernized. Something very exciting we're doing with the legislation is forming a statutory board, turning the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries into a statutory board.
Really?
Yeah, because government is not really set up to do business. And we want this statutory board to be able to facilitate much better commercial activity. So this statutory board is what we want it to do. One thing we want it to do is be able to buy the produce from the farmers.
Nice.
Have 100% guaranteed market once it meets our quality standards. And standards is going to be a much bigger thing when it comes to this legislation. We want to, as we did before, have a guaranteed market for our fishermen. So our fishermen will be able to get paid the same day they land their fish.
But they're doing some good jobs because I buy fish and I pay by ATH mobile. Sure, you ever buy fish now? You literally send your money by ATH mobile. You get your 5 pounds or 10 pounds of fish. So we get in, and these are local fishermen that are doing a great job.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Minister, you know, we don't have a lot of time, but there's so many questions, and I want to get more.
You're gonna have to bring me
personal.
back.
Absolutely.
Here.
I mean, it took him forever to get here, but I want to acknowledge your space as being so important. And can I say I worry about you? I do, because it is such a massive portfolio.
Yeah.
Do you think that you were given enough tools? Yes, you got a second PS,
Right.
but you're only one man.
Right.
And everybody, you called me in my other job. Things have nothing to do with agriculture, nothing to do with education, but the people that you represent, they
Right.
call you all the time.
Right, right.
And so I'm asking this question because you're one of the newest ministers. I think you're one of the most intelligent ones that are out there.
Why,
I
thank
think
you.
you're brilliant. But do you think that we continue to promote a welfare system in a BVI, which translates to you because you're brand new? And so I say welfare system where you allow persons in the community to have such access to you and you
Yeah.
expect to get things every single time. How are we managing that? Well, how are you guys managing that space?
No, you know, it's a very important question that you ask, Karia, but especially as a district representative, because we don't have certain systems in place.
Yeah.
A lot of the pressure ends up falling on the district representative. So our social services we have to invest more in our social services. We have to give the Minister of Health and Social Development and the Social Development Department more resources. And of course, there's only so much resources to go around. But I think health and education have to be at the top of the list.
I agree.
In terms of our investment. And we have budget coming up soon. So I hope all my colleagues are hearing me.
Yeah.
That actually, you asked if we had the resources to do our jobs. We need more resources. And we understand that there's only a limited amount of resources in the pot and so many things to get done. And that's why I really admire how the Minister of Finance and the Premier has led the effort to diversify the economy and to bring more money in through our existing industries. You know, we face a real challenge with financial services. Of course, they just passed global minimum tax of 15%. So we have to keep our eye on that ball. And of course, tourism has gone through a tough time with pandemics and hurricanes. But still, even in the midst of this tough time, we're diversifying the economy and strengthening our existing pillars because we have to make more money.
We do.
You know, we have to take government revenue from it's been between 300 and 350 for a while now. We have to take it up to 500 million to be able to facilitate the type of development and the standards we expect here in the BVI.
But Minister, we're halfway there to the interviews. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And unfortunately for you, but you're handling it so well, I don't feel too bad, Shane. We got to get into some more questions that I think that persons really want to ask. And I think you're doing a good job, a great job actually, of kind of explaining your side of the coin.
Right.
So BVI, Caribbean, the world, we thank you for always tuning into Real Talk here with Karia Christopher. We have the great Dr. Honourable Natalio Wheatley with a slew of portfolios. And I'm going to have two bands to get his name together on the screen. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds after a word from our kind sponsors, Flow.
When your dog rolls over, does it give you double data? Nope. But Flow prepaid mobile plans do. Simply stay topped up and you'll get double data when your Flow 7-day prepaid plan renews. That's up to 6 gigs for you to enjoy. Top up today. Now that's a good plan. Dial *129# to activate and stay topped up. Conditions apply.
How can you connect with people authentically from the heart? Nothing replaces the human connection better than communication. And nothing will be able to get you further along than to connect with other people. Today, I am offering you personalized one-on-one coaching on public speaking, negotiation, body language, all the necessary tools to make an impactful statement. It's about shoulders back, head straight, mastering the power pose, and giving your audience of 1, 100, or even 1,000 the biggest impact that you can dream of. I take you on a personalized journey in a private setting, holding your mic, standing at the lectern, and being authentically you, true to yourself, being a better communicator. My services will ensure that you are prepared for your next job interview, accepting a public contract, speaking at a wedding, a campaign event, addressing the boardroom. The possibilities are endless. We will ensure that you are prepared and ready to shine, no matter the audience. My many years in front of the camera with thousands of interviews, hundreds of hosting engagements, dozens of boardroom deliveries, and yes, my certifications have prepared me to teach you the tricks of the trade and prepare you for your next big step in life. I cannot think of anything in life where communication is not important. I am Karia Christopher of the Charm Academy, where we will make your voice your best asset to help you succeed. Call us today. And we are back here at the studios with Real Talk with Karia Christopher and Dr. the Honourable Natalio Wheatley. We talked about some of the challenges that you have in the job, and we understand that there is no job without its challenges. Unfortunately for you and the space that you work in, it's more customer based, if I can say.
Right.
You have lots of people that you have to have discussions with. Now, we're going to just touch a little bit on education for a little while longer. I understand everything about the pandemic, and I really give the government of the day the credit because they have now reinstated the scholarship program.
Yes.
So many well-deserving students
Yes.
who need to have scholarships, and some people can't get, and some people will get later on. The question I have is not about who can get and who can't get. I trust the system to do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
The issue that I, Karia Christopher, have, and you let me know if this is right or incorrect, the policy, I think a child gets $18,000 a year?
Yes.
$18,000 a year, which is enough to fill a gap. I am very happy with that. However, I don't see, and I have to say your ministry because you're the head of it,
Right.
encouraging our people, and we spoke about being able to compete with the best in the world.
Right.
I feel that section is mediocre at best. I don't see the energy or the suggestions or encouragement for our students to go to the best schools.
Right.
I feel that they're more cost-based, and I know that the government cannot furnish a $60,000, $70,000 a year child. Parents
Right.
have to do something.
Right.
Parents, if you get these kids, you gotta try to do your part, and the government is just here to subsidize. If I'm correct.
Right.
But the narrative feels like you should just go here because it's cheaper, or you should go there. And then how are we supposed to attract the best and the brightest to be the next Honourable Natalio, to be the next Premier, to be the next Auditor General, if we don't want them to go to the best in the best schools in the world? What's wrong with that narrative there? Tell me.
No, Karia, I think you're absolutely right. I don't have a challenge with what you've said at all. This is why I'm so happy that we were able to restart. Let me just speak about restarting the program as well. It was down for maybe about 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
So there were so many wonderful
Backed up. Yeah.
applicants who were there, and we've been trying our best to provide as many scholarships as possible. But what you're saying is correct. We have to have ways of pushing our children to quality institutions. I myself, I attended some quality institutions. I was at Clark Atlanta University, which is a historically black college, right next to Spelman, where your daughter goes.
Yes.
I had a wonderful experience. I mean, I only got a scholarship in my final year of being there, so I had to deal with the expenses with myself between my I worked for a year and saved some money. I actually went and I won a scholarship from the school. They gave me a full scholarship because of my academic performance.
I told you were brilliant. Did I not tell you that this man is one of the... I could see. Go ahead.
And then I ended up going to a very good school, which is for my master's degree, which is Purdue University.
You went to Purdue?
Yeah.
Stop playing.
I got my master's degree from Purdue.
I like those type of schools.
And
Good
Purdue probably has about 60,000 persons who go to the school.
Yeah, it's a massive school.
It's a massive school. And I was able to go again for my PhD to University of London School of Oriental and African Studies. So based on what it is I study, that's one of the best schools in the world for that. So I understand the importance of going to quality institutions. I think what we have to balance as a ministry is if you increase the amount of money you give to any particular person, then you'll give a smaller scholarship.
Right.
But it doesn't stop persons from seeking financing from other places. If you have the financial wherewithal, based on your family, to be able to go to a more expensive school, then this scholarship will help to subsidize what you can put in. And also, just like I said, if you're talented enough, you can win scholarships from the school. My brother, who is Dr. Ricardo Wheatley, he's a representative for our Asia office. He did an excellent job in securing scholarships from Asian universities. And these are some of the best universities in the world. So we're trying to create more avenues for persons. My ministry, I give grants as well. So there's some persons who perhaps maybe they need a little more topping up. They run into a little trouble.
Topping up.
They run into a little trouble.
Yeah.
I help to provide them with a grant. We also have the money services. This was something that was controversial at the time. We taxed the money services. But one area that the money services goes to, yes. MoneyGram, Western Union, one area that goes to is giving scholarships to our young people. So we have more revenue to put towards scholarships. Sometimes those are put towards grants to students to help them, because we know that it's tough, depending on the school that you're going to, how much that you have to pay. It's really tough. And I'm open to suggestions, really.
Well, one of the suggestions I would always like to make is that, and that's just me, I'm not a consultant, so there should be a consultant type of job.
Free advice.
But there are lots of, the trust companies and the offshore businesses. That should be the basic condition. They're making millions. Fund at least one child. Depending on their size, they can afford it. Fund 2 or 3 children. If you want to come to our country, then you have to give back. That's just my suggestion, because there's so many of them.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because one condition that we put in our Investment Act, you would be familiar with this with your job and trade, is that some persons, they get incentives based on doing things like investing in education.
Yeah.
That's in the Investment Act, and this is something I can actually congratulate the Premier on. When he has been negotiating with persons who want to do developments here, one of the areas that he asks for you to make a contribution, because you're not just coming here to make money off of our people.
Yeah.
You have to give back, and that's what we want to promote to our corporate community. Like I said before, it takes a whole community. It takes the business community. It takes the district representatives. It takes our civic associations. Everybody has to do their parts. If you come in here and an investor, it's not just about you making money. You have to give back to the territory, and perhaps some of those persons that you are supporting with a scholarship can actually come back and work in your company.
Correct.
And so it's like a reciprocal relationship.
I like the direction that's going. Now, Minister, because you do have such a huge job, I suspect you probably sleep 5 hours tops a day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to discuss the COI, because I know it's an active something, but I will discuss the scrutiny that the government of the day is facing. And that is not something that just this government of the day faces.
Yeah.
Every government,
that's true,
as a whole, gets hounded. It feels a little bit worse because we are more into social media now, and so everything is right at your tips of your tongues.
Exactly.
But it's the same thing.
Right.
Now, with the scrutiny that you see and then you read and you hear, does it make it more difficult for you to try to give to persons? Because now you have to worry about, well, if I give John Doe, who just lost his wife and, I don't know, he doesn't have a job, if I give him $3,000 because I know he's from my district and I know he needs it.
Right.
The difficulty now of trying to help somebody becomes very much more complex, because I understand that you need to have rules and regulations and to be transparent, but there's a whole new world that we're living in now. Are these challenging times making it more difficult to do your ministerial and representative jobs?
In some ways, I would say yes. And I would say this really has to do with the United Kingdom. And we really want to ask the United Kingdom to really temper their views, because, of course, we believe in transparency. We believe in accountability. We believe in good governance. But one thing you can't forget when you speak about all of those things is also progress for the people is important. Sometimes we get lost in that. Sometimes we get so caught up with good governance, accountability, and transparency that we forget that you're actually supposed to deliver for people and help them to meet their aspirations. And I'll give you a good example of that. Let's take the schools, for instance. We had furniture for the schools, and we wanted to go through the full process because, of course, you want value for money. So while we could have gotten the furniture a lot more quickly so that the students had a place to sit, we had to go through a very long, protracted process that took well over a year, maybe 2 years. I have to check and see exactly how long it took. But it took a very long time because of the tender process and then problems that we had in the tender process. So you're trying to get value for money for this furniture, but then the children need a place to sit. So you end up having to spend money to buy temporary furniture, and you're still going through this process of getting value for money. So for me, that means that we've lost the point.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I understand part of being a minister, part of being a representative is to help the community.
Right.
That's what we want. And we know that it's our money, so if we need it, we're asking. But do you understand that from a ministerial point of view, from a government point of view, you have lost, when I say you, the government has lost a lot of confidence. The public has lost a lot of confidence in the government because of the perceived lack of transparency when we hear these information. For instance, when there's a cry and you're part of cabinet, so you would have to be able to say yes. Me, Shane, all of us, we use NHI. NHI is in its growing pains. It's not ideal in a lot of cases, but it's what we have. And so when I don't want to say leak, but when information is given to us by perhaps not the way that the government wanted it to come out, and the public now is like, oh, so we have to use NHI, but you guys get plastic surgery, you get your spouse, you get your children, and we have to pay for it. And you guys get an extra pension, and you guys... So do you understand where the public will lose confidence in the government when we receive information not from the government?
No, absolutely. I think it's important to always share information because a lot of things that you mentioned, it came across a particular way and it really was not.
Correct.
It really was not that way. So it's important for us to be able to communicate. And I'll admit that our communication can be stronger with the people. But when it comes to transparency, accountability, and good governance, I don't want us to be too hard on ourselves. It's important for us to have a high standard. But, as a government, we've passed good governance legislation recently. We have the Integrity in Public Life Act. We have the Whistleblower Act. We have the Contractor General legislation.
A ton of legislation.
We have the Ministerial Code. And remember, Karia, we've only had our own legislature when it was restored in 1950. That's just about 71 years. And I find that a lot of times we're hard on ourselves. Well, of course, it's important to have a high standard, but also recognize how far you've come in a very short period of time. And the United Kingdom, the United States, every country that you can think about in the world, they have their problems, they have their challenges. But what I want persons to understand is it's important for you to always know that you have to empower yourselves to be able to solve these challenges, as opposed to expecting somebody from someplace else to solve these challenges for you. And we have to strengthen our democratic institutions. Election is only one, but we have so many other democratic institutions that we have to strengthen. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we're well informed. That's why I appreciate your maturity in speaking about not taking certain type of news. But we have to make sure that we're well informed. We have the information. We listen to the House of Assembly. When we have new bills that are being gazetted, that we take a look through those bills. We read the minister's statements. We make sure that as a civic-minded individual, we do our part. And then let the chips fall where they may.
You're more than halfway there. More than halfway through that 4-year term.
Yes.
So the process is going to start over again in a minute.
Right.
As we are today, I think it's the 10th of October. The show will end in a few weeks, but it's the 10th of October. 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. How do you grade yourself?
Well, you know what? I'm always going to give myself a good grade.
I mean, you're Purdue.
Yeah. I'm always going to, I think, and it's not just me, I think the government has done a wonderful job given the adverse circumstances that we faced. Let's take COVID. We're very hard on ourselves, right? But the United Nations designated us as an example in the Eastern Caribbean for the management of COVID. The United Kingdom praised our management of COVID. For most part of COVID, we only had, and we're sorry for that death, but we had 1 death. Then we've had an unfortunate spike in, I believe it was July of this year, and we lost about maybe about 36
36 people.
36
something like that,
persons.
yeah.
But besides that, we've had excellent management of COVID. I've praised the Ministry of Finance because with all the financial pressures we have here, lack of money coming into the government, tourism being down as it is, we've still within our ratios as it pertains to liquidity with the protocols for effective financial management. Still able to balance the budget, still able to keep all our public servants employed. I mean, those are things that we take for granted, but if you look up and down the island chain, lots of persons have lost their jobs. Lots of governments have had to go to the IMF or to the World Bank to try to keep afloat. They're trying to get credit. They can't get vaccines for their people. They're desperate for vaccines. We've done a really good job in managing COVID, and we've done a really good job, despite the talk, of managing our finances, and we've still been able to invest in our infrastructure. What the Ministry of Transportation is doing has been amazing, even though it doesn't get as much attention as it should. We've been able to build many new structures in our education system. We have Eslin Henley that's about to be built.
Yeah, I heard so.
We have Jasper Knight Primary School about to be built. We just built Brigado Flax Educational Center. We've repaired just about 95% of the sports infrastructure in the country. We're investing in our culture. We have Culture and Tourism Month coming up in November, and some wonderful activities. We passed Heroes and For Parents Day. We're going to have that holiday next week, actually. And we've done a lot. We've done a whole lot.
A full 10. I mean, Minister, you give yourself a 10 just there. So
Yes.
let me just drop it down to a 9. Olympic team, again, under you.
Yes.
I mean, you just have such a massive portfolio.
Yes.
We have done, I think, outstanding.
Yes, we have.
Outstanding, the Chantels and the McMaster and the Phillips, the swimmer. Man, I'm so proud.
Yes.
I mean, clearly you can see I'm not athletically inclined, but I support them 100%. Why is it that the language, I have a problem with the language and the messaging that my government allows to happen? There seems to be some outcry, and I literally have 1 minute to ask you, because we have awarded these athletes with monetary gifts, which I personally believe that they certainly deserve.
Right.
What is the angle on that?
Well, actually, this is a part of a cabinet decision that has taken place before in terms of the structure for awarding athletes who do well at these particular games. So that's not a decision that I made. That's in line with policy that the government had, which is important. And I think that we have to develop a similar policy for other things like pageants. Let's say let's say Miss BVI wins Miss Universe.
Wow.
Oh man, we have to do something. Let's say a BVI lander wins a Grammy. We have to reward them. And I think when Chantel Malone won a gold medal at the Pan Am Games, I think that's probably the highest gold medal that we've ever won as a country. She got an award in keeping with that policy. And persons, it was a sizable amount of money if Kyron or Chantel won the gold. Then you would really see money. I think based on the policy, I think gold medal at the Olympics would have gotten them about $60,000.
And I think that was well deserved, because I know in Singapore you get $735,000 US if you win. China, similar kinds of money. It's right there in black and white.
And let me say to you, Puerto Rico recently, the Minister of Transportation told me this because he traveled on a plane with the athlete from Puerto Rico that won their first gold medal. And when I tell you, the entire Puerto Rico was just proud.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a bit discouraging for me to see some of the attitudes towards persons in the BVI who do well, when we really should be supporting. Now, I don't want to discount all of those persons who came out in the motorcade and really celebrated our athletes, but sometimes persons have a kind of negative,
As you telling me,
a negative attitude when, just when one of our people does well, let's all celebrate it. Let's all feel good about it.
It's a narrative that we have to change. We're 100% all the time. Shit is going to kill me. You definitely have to come back for a part 2.
I got to.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. the Honourable, I'm going to say it right? Natalio Wheatley.
There you go.
He is, I am going to say, one of the most intelligent ministers I've actually spoken to on this show.
Thank you.
Brilliant answers. I know that it's a tough space and you lead a tough group of people, which are parents and farmers and fishermen and woo!
They keep me busy.
It's a lot. And I want to thank you so for doing your best.
Thank you.
I recognize more than a lot of people the pressures that a ministerial position has. It's a tough space to be professionally and personally. And to even come here on this show says a lot about your competence and your confidence in the work that you do. And I thank you so much for coming on here on Real Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Not enough time. I have 50 million more questions, but we have to go. Minister, I appreciate your time. Please come back again. I like to have them close to election, Shane. We like to access.
Yes.
We like to have them close to election so we could now grade them properly because you had the full 4 years. Minister, I wish you the best. Education is an important aspect. All of your portfolio is really important. So God bless you as you continue to thrive in your space. And I wish you the best as you continue to do, I want to say, God's work in helping the people. Absolutely.
Amen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Karia Christopher. I know that I take my job very seriously and I don't discount everything that I say that persons hear me. And so I want to give you the best, truest, most authentic content. And of course, our season this year is to live and learn and laugh and love. And I want to thank you for tuning in with me every week for a specific hour. I love you. I love the job that I do. And I thank Flo for giving me this amazing, amazing platform. God bless you. Have a great week. Take care. Real Talk is proudly powered by Flow, sponsored by Nagico Insurances.